3 dramas in particular, and hopefully in general, a little bit. I won't make you read all more than 100 pages. I'll just share a couple of passages that I think are particularly interesting.
Which 3 dramas?
It is focused on Hamsafar, of course, Zindagi Guzar Hai and Mere Paas Tum Ho.
Mere Paas Tum Ho.
So, where is Papa?
That's not a drama, is it?
No. No comment. I did, yeah, quite a bit. Yes, yeah.
So, isme Zahra, is there any contribution from your discussions with Salima Hashmi or with Shoaib Hashmi?
Not, so I never met Shoaib Hashmi, but I did meet Salima Hashmi. So our conversations didn't have anything to do with this thesis exactly. We talked about like the dramas that she was a part of and the work she did with her husband and stuff. But no, not particularly about this thesis. It does include stuff I talked to about with media studies instructors and filmmakers in Pakistan who had come to visit in Austin at UT. So we talked about a lot of these dramas. So the university does not actually give you a physical copy of your thesis, it's just online, but I wanted one, so I printed this. So this is the one and only physical copy of my thesis. Okay. Thank you all for being here. I hope you don't get bored. Dedication. This thesis is dedicated to my father. Sheikh Murtaza Mullah Akbar Ali Tapal, whose lifelong struggles and efforts have amounted to the good fortune of innumerable people, including myself, and who holds within him the name of my late Dada, who was not able to complete even basic education, but loved going to the cinema, and who I imagine might be smiling down upon this accomplishment of mine. To my dear father, who has never stopped giving me opportunity, to my late Dada, a dreamer who loved the arts, and to my beloved late Nana, Hamza Imdad Ali, who birthed in me a joy of literature and storytelling. Acknowledgements. When I applied for the Masters of Arts program in UT's Radio, Television, Film department, I could not have known the barrage of difficulties that would drown me in the 2 years that it took to complete this thesis. I thank God that I was not given more than I could bear, and I thank God that I was deemed capable enough to endure the ones I was given. More shocks have come my way in the past 2 years than perhaps in my whole life. My Nana's diagnosis of blood cancer, my mother's family moving from Karachi to Houston, my Sakina auntie admitted to the hospital, my Nana leaving us right after she returned home, my Husseina Khalas and Fatima Khalas increased mental distress after my Nana's passing, and our family's subsequently increased dedication to their well-being. My cousin Amir's disappearance and death on an ill-fated weekend camping trip that simultaneously ripped a hole in our family and stitched us back together. My Husseina Khalas fractured tibia and my parents' dedication to a traumatizing recovery, which is ongoing as I typed this. And so much more that my heart and mind have perhaps dissolved away to focus on more urgent matters. I would like to thank a former instructor of mine and someone I call friend now, Claire Cooley, whose undergraduate RTF course on media and the Middle East gave me the final push to pursue a master's degree. I'd like to thank my supervisor, Shanti Kumar, whose considerate feedback always reignited my motivation when I was feeling disconcerted with writing and made me believe that I was doing something meaningful and at times perhaps even good. I'd like to thank my secondary reader, Kathy Fuller-Seeley, who has been involved in my academic career in whatever big or small way since I was an undergrad RTF major at UT, and who was initially an essential factor in making me feel comfortable in the strangely new and daunting environment of graduate school. I'd like to mention Nabiha Chaudhry. You were the first person I ever encountered who had made Pakistani dramas the focus of her research. Taking your class as a rookie undergrad was the first spark in inspiring me to believe in broader horizons. I'd also like to mention Ramna Walia, who introduced me to Saadat Hasan Manto's Toba Tek Singh when I was still an undergrad, a marvelous piece of literature that came back to me in the past 2 years and has continued to inspire my growth as a writer and scholar of Pakistani media. I thank the South Asia Institute for involving me with the university partnership between UT's RTF department and Karachi University's Visual Studies department, which introduced me to several Pakistani filmmakers and media studies instructors whose conversations with me in turn informed the content of this thesis. To all my friends of Theta Aleph Beta, you are all ridiculous, and I'm so grateful for your friendship. Without you, I would probably get lost in my own pits of despair. Thank you to my father for believing in my abilities evermore. You taught me to never be afraid of anything or anyone. To my mother, Dr. Zahra Tapal, for being perhaps the strongest person I have ever known, full of enough love, care, and steadfastness to uplift all my fears, worries, and insecurities, whether she knows the full extent of her contribution or not. I couldn't be more proud to get my firecracker personality from you. Without a doubt, it's my parents' prayers that have gotten me this far. Watching you both watch Pakistani dramas together is what started this all. I hope I have made you proud. Thank you to my cousin Fahim, who is 1/4 of our little gang, which has always been my true north. The past year in Austin would have been more difficult without you. Thank you to my dearest Amma, for whom cousin is too weak of a word and sister not accurate enough. You have always been my sounding board, and your ridiculous, ingenious, middle-of-the-night ideas from our years living together remain in my archives, waiting to see a blank page or an open screen. I give my deepest love and gratitude to my elder sister Zina. You are the reason for everything. And finally, I'd like to thank me for believing in me. Sorry. Okay. This thesis is titled Suffering Women in Pakistani TV Dramas, Can the Diasporic Pakistani Relate? ? The first section is from Chapter 1, subsection Suffering Women Genre. Most Pakistani TV dramas, no matter the storyline or premise, portray women's suffering. Initially, this visual trend may merely seem like unfortunate coincidence. After speaking with a few local professionals who turned to film after being dejected by the drama industry, I learned that this is in fact the most indicative convention of a prominent genre that perpetuates lessons in feminine helplessness and self-pity. Examining an array of Pakistani TV dramas around the figure of martyr women, texts like Mere Zat Zahra or My Essence is Completely Unknown, a drama closer to immense tragedy or masochism, and Bin Roy, or Without Crime, a drama closer to soppy love addiction, are grouped together under a genre I will call suffering women. The usual narrative involves three major conventions: depictions of crying or suffering women, toxic patriarchal characters, and a concept I refer to as taqdeer. The term taqdeer is derived from the Arabic word, referring to predestination or blind faith in the Islamic context. This is strategically sourced to convey the trope's misconstrued religious connotation of karmic justice. Often, this concept is fondly referred to as poetic justice. Typically, a suffering woman plot is wrapped up with taqdeer. This finale seemingly rewards the once flawed female protagonist's silent suffering by indirect recompense when she renounces a critically amoral quality and becomes a pious, selfless, and respectable woman. Her reward usually comes in the form of her antagonist receiving punishment in some cosmic fashion, possibly, often, for transgressions completely unrelated to the protagonist herself. Pakistani TV dramas have been dominated by phases of genres over their lifetime of more than 5 decades: comedy, romance, patriotism, spirituality, and more. Across this entire landscape, women's suffering has only grown to become a commodified genre for the small screen. The next section is called Theory, Suffering Women, and Other Unfortunate Tropes. And this section begins with an excerpt from another writer's work. Feel free to make comments or whatever. It's not strict. So this is another excerpt from someone else's writing. Conjure up a picture of an Asian woman. What comes in your mind's eye? Reflect on it a moment. Write it down. Draw it. Have the words passive, submissive been a part of your portrayal? Have you imagined a woman beaten down and subjugated by the arranged marriage system? A woman ruled by the wishes of her family, a woman not able to assert her own ambitions and desires, let alone fight against poverty, degradation, repression? If so, this portrayal of an Asian woman is a figment of your imaginings. Racist imaginings which have taken strands from oppressive Hindu practices, imperialist ventures, capitalist projections, and welded these into an inhumane whole which shackles us down. Your task is to unlearn and relearn. Our task is to create new imaginings. The above excerpt from Parita Trivedi's 1984 prologue to a comprehensive account of Asian women's long history of struggle and demonstration paints a vivid picture of the core concept of this thesis. More than a universal notion of an oppressed woman, she captures the fabled image of the subcontinent's mythic suffering woman. However, all myths relate to reality in some degree. Inseparable with the region's long-held traditions of silent suffering, the suffering woman lives in nearly all subcontinental women in some form. Like many toxic patriarchal structures, rituals of silent suffering are predominantly perpetuated by matrilineal generational conditioning. This usually manifests in what is colloquially referred to in the subcontinental community as log kya kahenge. The phrase, meaning what will people say, is entrenched in cultural obsessions over societal norms. The cyclical pattern appears as mothers teaching their daughters to anticipate reward if they patiently endure hardship instead of disturbing the status quo by voicing their struggle. Consequently, the daughters grow to become mothers who impress the same lessons upon their daughters, and so on and so forth. Conditioning girls to prioritize others' needs and desires above their own from an early age contributes to the perception that girls mentally mature earlier than boys. Within this narrative, voicing one's struggles is often thought of as immature whining. In that regard, adolescent or adult women are scorned for voicing their struggles because such behavior is more so expected of, but still discouraged in, young girls or children. Traditionally, girls are instructed to comport themselves in relation to their male counterparts. In order to escape possibility of lecherous attention, women and girls of all ages should behave timidly in public spaces. Instead of teaching boys to be respectful and considerate of their words and actions, girls should allow boys to be boys and women should allow men to be men. In preparation of young women's anticipated marriages, they're advised in the ways they should put the desires of their imaginary husband and his imaginary family above their own. In this way, most subcontinental women have been taught by none more than their own mothers to suffer silently because that is the only way to be rewarded with happiness. Despite the fact that women continue to be groomed since childhood into suffering women, the aim of this thesis remains as optimistic as Trivedi's closing remarks on healing and creating anew. Focusing on iterations of suffering women in Pakistani traditions, the aspirational attitude of this project argues that this cycle has potential yet to be broken. Let's see. The next section is from chapter 2, subsection Pakistani television, PTV Golden Era, which I think some of you might particularly like. I begin with naming a few legends of Pakistani television who cannot go unnamed, and then I go on to say, while most of these figures were drama artists acting in PTV drama serials, some are known for a more expansive impact on the industry. An account of Pakistani television history would be utterly incomplete without addressing the contributions of Zia Muhyiddin, Anwar Maqsood, and Moin Akhtar. Aside from a career of almost 50 years in British film, Muhyiddin was the most sought-after television host in Pakistan due to his talk show, The Zia Muhyiddin Show, in the 1970s. In addition to his satirical writing for PTV dramas, Maqsood is most famous for his writing and appearance on 70s and 80s comedy shows like 50-50, loosely based on SNL, and The Zia Muhyiddin Show, as well as comedy talk show Loose Talk in the 2000s. Maqsood's close compatriot in the arts, Akhtar, is remembered as a one-of-a-kind parodist and the king of Urdu comedy, with a career of over 45 years from the 1960s to a year before his death in 2011. Some of his most notable work is being interviewed by Maqsood as a different character on every episode of Loose Talk, with a total of over 400 episodes, and one of those episodes features him as a boarding man, if anyone remembers.
Yes.
The oeuvre of television content contributed by these distinguished figures is most commonly praised for a sophisticated and tasteful etiquette that is largely unseen in the contemporary era. The fact that these writers and actors continue to be remembered as cultural ambassadors of Pakistan emphasizes the notion that television serves as Pakistan's national cinema of sorts. Another writer that shaped the revered foundations of Pakistani television was Hasina Moin. Hugely famous screenwriter and playwright from the golden era, Moin's most celebrated projects are especially praised for their strong female characters. She was responsible for writing some of the most popular drama serials to date, such as Dhoop Kinare, or At the Edge of Sunshine, Unkahi, or Unsaid, Tanhaiya, or The Loneliness, Ahat, or The Inkling, Asu, or The Tears, The Castle Ek Umeed, or The Castle of Hope, Uncle Urfi, Kiran Kahani, Shizori, and even Indian plays such as Tanha, or Alone, and Kashmakash, or The Dilemma. Playing one of Hasina Moin's girls was considered a high point for drama artists' acting careers, while similarly successful novelists and playwrights such as Bano Kutsia and Fatima Suraya Bajia were also in her company. Moin was a phenomenon. Above all else, her work for PTV elevated the average woman to capture the dream of millions of Pakistani, freedom to be themselves. The overwhelming majority of literature on Pakistani television around the 1980s focuses on Zia-era policies dominating women with unprecedented repression through state-sanctioned chadar and chardiwari, or the veil in the household. During Zia's military dictatorship, the state tried to enforce a restricted lifestyle upon women based on misinterpretations of Islamic values, which certainly disadvantaged many women from various walks of life. However, ultimately, Zia-era policies did not much interfere with female representation on television until after he left office. Remarkably, Moin's dramas were never censored by the state, and Zia was in fact a fan of her work. By strategically positioning her dramas as stories of love, family, and comedy, Moin escaped any labels of controversy or self-interference. It was this facade of frivolity that deemed Moin's work as apolitical and allowed her dramas to encourage women towards discreet feminist resistance. In a memorable scene from the 6th episode of Hasina Moin's celebrated 1987 television serial, Dhoop Kinare, protagonist Dr. Zoya Ali Khan is sitting in a hospital break room with her colleagues. A playful argument breaks out when a male physician suggests that women should not be able to work in the hospital and should learn only the skills required to run the household. Zoya answers testily, तभी तो हमारी कौम तरक्की नहीं कर सकी क्योंकि हमारे मर्दों की ज़हनियत ऐसी है. That's why our nation or people was or were not able to enact change, because our men's mentality is like this.
So this is all part of your thesis completely?
Yes.
So the first chapter was basically on the drama side?
No, the first chapter was, it was an introduction. Which I did not read from right now, because we know a lot about dramas, but the general public probably doesn't. Though I gave an intro, okay, what is this thesis going to be about? The second chapter was about Pakistani television history in general. What does Pakistani television look like? You know, globally, how does the industry look like? And now we are at chapter 3. Where is it? Okay. So this next section is from chapter 3, subsection theory, binary feminine morality. And this section also starts with an excerpt from another writer. Almost every woman I have ever met has a secret belief that she is just on the edge of madness, that there is some deep, crazy part within her, that she must be on guard constantly against losing control of her temper, of her appetite, of her sexuality, of her feelings, of her ambition, of her secret fantasies, of her mind. The larger, and now my own words.
Now, whose quote is this?
The larger context of Ilana Dyke-Woman's 1988 words will be addressed after expanding on the essence of this chapter. Ilana Dyke-Woman. She is a scholar. The essence of this chapter, which is embodied by the above excerpt. The visceral tension of restraining one's instincts for the sake of abiding by some arbitrary delineation of comportment is caused by a theory I simply refer to as binary morality, or binary feminine morality. The concept alludes to a harsh system of only good or bad descriptors, with little to nothing in between. Based on binary morality, people can be either morally good or morally bad, not anything else or anything more. The danger of such a system is its inherent rejection of human complexity, when that is all that we are made of, complexities. From a sociological or psychological perspective, appreciation of such complexities is practiced by a multiple identity approach. For the purposes of this project, I adapt a multiple identity approach to look at gender stereotypes. Binary feminine morality eliminates any space for feminine intersectionality. I argue that portrayals of suffering women in selected dramas encourage binary definitions based on warped ideologies of Islamic values of morally good or morally bad women. This is where Dyke Woman's theory of feminine madness takes effect. According to her, it is common knowledge that governments and male authorities have a tremendous stake in defining women's characteristics, but we have yet to enact any substantially personal or political change on the matter, according to her. A comment made by Khalilur Rahman Qamar, writer of Mere Paas Tum Ho, perfectly exemplifies this suffocation. He says, "I don't call every woman a woman, whether you like it or not. There's only one thing that makes a woman beautiful, and that's haya, or modesty, and wafa, or loyalty. If you don't have those, I call you a non-woman." This comment was delivered in the first of a series of interviews that made Qamar the most loved and hated man in the industry. So this comment was delivered in the first of a series of interviews that made Qamar the most loved and hated man in the industry, apparently, as he continued to share his views on gender equality in Pakistani women in later interviews and live talk shows. Following Mere Paas Tum Ho's controversial finale, Qamar came under feminist fire across social media for his misogynistic narrative and character arcs. The author of an op-ed article analyzing this interview in particular notes that his comments about consent and gendered blame seem to counteract his intentions, unfortunately, as they actively dehumanize men rather than reveal them as vulnerable. So this predicament, Dyke Woman addresses this as a predicament of delineations for femininity and feminism. She addresses this predicament as a psychological war against women's minds. Her theory of feminine madness is based on the notion that agents such as institutionalized religion or psychology, effectively control how women behave. The restriction of women's comportment leads to an inescapable conflict between women's natural behavior and the categorically unnatural place of losing control. In this chapter, I explore the ways that portrayals of women in suffering women genre dramas demonstrate this conflict. Moving on. So this is all that I'm skipping, you don't have to here. The next section is from chapter 4, subsection Pakistani diaspora in Houston, Texas, which I think a lot of people will enjoy. The most prominent generation of Pakistani diasporans in the South arrived in America around the 1970s and 1980s. The metropolitan opportunities of Houston has maintained the city as an especially attractive destination for immigrants, and "I came to America in" is the most common beginning of their stories. Fast forward to contemporary times. Most immigrants of the 1960s to 1980s now have their own nuclear families and established roots in Houston as Pakistani Americans. As recent as 2015, the Pakistani diaspora makes up 37,000 individuals, around 0.6% of the collective population across the Texas areas of Houston, Sugar Land, Baytown, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Arlington. While the city was scarcely aware of the South Asian community in the 1980s, the Pakistani population in Houston is only growing now. The Pakistani presence in Houston is most visually evident by one of the city's most international areas. The roughly half-mile by mile Hillcroft to Harwin corridors are brimming with Indian and Pakistani restaurants, jewelry stores, groceries, sari shops, and vendors and salons of various Indian and Pakistani-owned businesses. The nearby vicinity also includes vendors and even diplomatic consulates from around the world. It is also patently, expressively Houston. In 2001, there were 15 Pakistani radio programs on the air, a high number even for a city with one of the largest Pakistani immigrant populations of any city in the US. These Houston-based Pakistani radio programs provide reports on culture and politics in Houston, South Asia, the Muslim world, and beyond, from a Pakistani Muslim American perspective. These programs also provide entertainment by playing Indian Pakistani songs and music, information about local South Asian business and services, and a calendar of local cultural events. Local events such as art shows and melas or festivals popularly exhibit regional Pakistani artwork, truck art installations, and poetry readings known as Urdu Mushaira. Pakistanis of all ages participate in these cultural events amid an environment reminiscent of mainland Pakistan. Setting the scene of the Pakistani community in the greater Houston area facilitates a more nuanced appreciation for this chapter's examination of diasporic Pakistani reception of dramas from Houston-based audiences. So it's a setup for people to understand what I'm going to interview people who are Pakistani in America, in Houston. So what is their perspective like? What does it look like? Okay. So the next section is from chapter 4, subsection conclusion, it's just a drama. It's just a drama. It's just a drama.
After building all the narrative and the argument, it's just a
It's
drama.
just a drama. It's just a drama.
That's
Exactly.
really
Yeah.
the punchline.
Yeah, that's the punchline. Let's hear it. After almost every comment about a depressing character or plot point, every interview participant ended the observation with a throwaway phrase, something along the lines of, "But it's a drama." This redundant punctuation of their often bleak remarks about Pakistani society leaves one thinking, well, obviously it's a drama. The phrase seems to have a twofold connotation. One, I'm not so naive as to equate a drama to reality. And two, we don't need to worry because these characters' lives are not our lives. Participants' thoughts and arguments organically flowed from fiction to reality and back. Additionally, they all confess that they believe the miserable things that happen to these characters must be happening to someone real in Pakistan as well. Despite these admissions, they felt the need to repeatedly highlight that the extraordinary suffering shown in these dramas could only exist to that severe degree within that otherworldly realm behind the screen. Their conversations, though, lead us to believe something contrary. Either dramas are closer to reality than we would like to admit, or we admit that reality is actually quite better than what dramas would like us to believe. However, but it's a drama leaves us in some in-between place where neither idea is completely accurate nor completely ridiculous. Why do we feel the need to look down upon entertainment? Perhaps condescending to television makes us feel more reasonable or intelligent. Though, is it not clever the way screenwriters weave our most potent insecurities and desires into a screen-worthy series? Is it not remarkable the way we all agree that dramas are just dramas, but still feel even a little invested in the characters? On second thought, maybe our endless reminders of a drama's fictitiousness are more of a trigger warning, as if to say, life is only that miserable in dramas, not in real life, right? It depends, yeah. The next section is from the final chapter, chapter 5, titled Conclusion, A Balanced Path, the possible end of Pakistani suffering women, ? The starting point of this project came from simply watching my parents watch Pakistani dramas together at home.
That's surprising, huh?
Is it? Yeah?
Yasmin, you have the patience to watch drama. Yeah, that must be really taxing, huh?
It's nice sometimes पता चलता है कि अच्छी सीरियल चल रही है कोई अच्छा है and not every drama but ये कि पता होता है कि this is something nice to watch. So
He is able to concentrate that much time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's because you are sitting on the side of the TV.
No, sometimes.
End of the day when he just as long as he does not बिल्कुल gives up.
That's the new what you call it. Something which we have explored of Murtaza which we haven't yet. Huh?
That's a new side of you.
I used to love reading Urdu digest.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Who knows it better than me? You came second, huh? We know it. We know how he got his glasses.
You must be knowing more than what I know.
Just
That's
read
what I'm
it.
saying.
अच्छा उससे पूछो. He used to read a famous अफसाना सदियों का बेटा. याद है?
दास्तान अमीर हमजा पता नहीं क्या क्या था
सदियों का बेटा.
दास्तान अमीर हमजा
Yeah.
Don't know how many 10,000 of basically.
अखबार जहाँ में पढ़ता था
हाँ?
अखबार ख़वातीन अखबार जहाँ में
You name it.
We were around him, so we made sure that he doesn't read that. We restricted his. We restricted his sort of readings to Jasusi Digest, Suspense Digest, और क्या Urdu Digest.
Romance मतलब पढ़ता?
This type.
Imran series.
Imran, see back to your.
Coming back. No, I appreciate it. I love it. So, yeah. So this is the last chapter, chapter 5. And yes, I watched Mummy and Papa watch dramas at home, and that's how I was inspired about this project. Though I had my own opinions of drama's depressive effect, I was always intrigued to see my parents' keen concentration and the instinctive comments that passed between them as they watched. Therefore, initially, this project was proposed as a study of diasporic reception patterns of married couples consuming Pakistani suffering women dramas. Due to time constraints and the insurmountable obstacle of the average Desi uncle's short attention span, that proposal evolved into this current work. My fascination with the influence of these dramas remained central throughout the project's growth, though. So the work presented in this thesis is significant as a scholarly contribution to Pakistani media studies, an area that is often overshadowed by disproportionate attention given to Indian media and Bollywood. The goal of this project has been to elucidate counterproductive trends in popular contemporary Pakistani Urdu TV dramas and their subsequent influence on shaping diasporic viewers' perception of real women's struggles and opportunities in Pakistan. A large portion of existing literature focuses on anti-Islamic and pro-Western representations in dramas, advocating for dramas to promote Pakistani Islamic values and culture. However, the present Islamic values and culture of Pakistan are warped from the source material at best, and need no further propagation to remain rooted in Pakistani society. Through this current work, I have argued that creative responsibility is an important aspect of production or encoding, as dramas have the power to directly affect Pakistani women's realities of disadvantage and liberty.
Read the last line again. Read the last
Sure.
line.
Through this current work, I have argued that creative responsibility is an important aspect of production or encoding, as dramas have the power to directly affect Pakistani women's realities of disadvantage and liberty, because they are a form of cultural imperialism. You watch a drama and to some degree you believe something is real. Even if you say like, no, this is just a drama, but there's something that you think that might be real.
Yes.
Yeah. And if it is not real, well, you're causing people to believe that it might be. So this thesis opens up new avenues for more niche research at the intersection of media consumption and diaspora studies. Some diasporic Pakistani men seem more inclined to consume dramas than local Pakistani men. For many local men, participating in drama viewership seems to be regarded as a strictly female activity and therefore unsuitable for them. Further research on sociological factors motivating such ideology and practice would be productive. The methods used in this project were employed primarily to comfortably welcome unfamiliar readers, unlike us, to the objects of study, but are not the only ways, nor perhaps even the best ways, to interact with dramas and suffering women dramas in particular. With this current work, I have only begun to fill the gap in research of diasporic viewership of Pakistani dramas and drama's overarching influence on shaping a global imaginary of the nation, its people, and its values. There are still many more avenues to investigate in this area to build a well-rounded body of work regarding Pakistani media. And I end this thesis with a quote from some author. It goes like this: "Sometimes suffering is just suffering. It doesn't make you stronger, it doesn't build character, it only hurts."
So what do you recommend to end the suffering of Pakistani women?
I recommend to first of all, not have the three major conventions of this genre. Because when I spoke to, so part of my job that I had at UT, I interacted with a lot of filmmakers from Pakistan. They would come to visit, and I had conversations with them about like, why are you so interested in being in the film industry, because it's not a very strong industry in Pakistan. The TV drama industry is already so booming, so why are you going to film? What is the motivation for that? And they would tell me that it's disheartening, because if you go to a TV producer in Pakistan with a script that you've written, they will literally immediately give you a list of things. You have to write this into the script or else we won't produce it. The most common thing is you need to make the female characters cry on screen. Because apparently that's what people want to watch, apparently.
That's
But
what sounds.
exactly, I don't think so. Exactly.
And I wouldn't say that we can categorize Pakistani women as the suffering women. Pakistani women are not literally
Exactly.
suffering women.
Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly.
it's shown in the drama, yes.
Exactly.
That's why I don't. But that isn't always the truth.
Exactly, that's the whole point of the thesis.
Yeah. So
show them crying.
like you just mentioned that how can we overcome sufferings of Pakistani women?
No,
That was
What would you recommend to
yeah,
end
to
suffering
overcome the suffering.
of women, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about I'm talking about the end of suffering women characters.
Characters, yes. But there is some reality.
I'm not a
Characters
politician,
as well.
I'm not a philanthropist, I'm just a writer.
It's not just interesting. Yes,
Free discussion.
So if I may say, No, I was going to say, first of all, it's commendable that you wrote something.
They're trying to change the
and being born in and everybody listen. Sorry. I was telling Zahra that it's really commendable that it is so good to see people like her, born and raised over here, to be interested and write something about it and make that topic of a thesis is awesome. Because whether we like it or not, our television has always been the strong media in Pakistan. Film never was. Why? Because to this day, I think we are culturally, TV portrays our culture more realistically, I should say, or whatever, unrealistic, whatever. But TV has always been the strongest media, yeah. Having said that, there have been like periods in history of Pakistani dramas where the creativity was allowed to run, and like Hasina Moin and Fatma Suraya, both came from very two different backgrounds, right? Fatma Suraya was the typical, the nice, the Sharmili Shama, the Shama of the dramas, and Hasina Moin was Ankahi and the Shanaz, strong ladies, but the biggest thing that both the writers had was that every female character lived life within certain cultural bounds.
Yes.
Respect and cultural bounds, badon ki izzat, and what is proper, what is improper, how to wear dupatta, and what, if short hair is good or not. I mean, there were things, but they were all depicted in a very culturally sensitive way, and yet presenting a progressive picture, right?
Yes, it's like because the characters she wrote were diverse.
Exactly.
It wasn't like if they are all dupatta wala, they're all dupatta wala. This character is like this.
Exactly.
This character is like this.
So she allowed the freedom.
And they are themselves.
She allowed the freedom.
Yes.
Having said that, if you say कि yes, जैसे my mother always used to say कि मुझे ये रोते पीते ड्रामे अच्छे नहीं लगते, because we are always crying, always suffering, always.
And it's unrealistic.
I would say that
the extremity of it shown in TV is a little
because to have
excessive.
an impact, to have an impact on somebody's mind, a little bit of exaggeration is needed in media, film, whatever vehicle you're using. But I must say that Pakistani dramas are also and have always been reflective of the social changes in the culture. So whether it was the Hasina Moin era, if you remember, all of us probably remember the era of generations and all these new
Trends that come out from the
trends
characters,
that would
yes.
come out, right? Benjamin sisters and all that, right?
Yeah.
So they used to create a social change,
Yeah.
right? So women stopped using the simple shalwar kameez and they went into these generation mode, right? And so they do bring about the cultural change. Secondly, what we are seeing now in the dramas is a lot of dramas are revolving around infidelity,
Oh yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the
infidelity,
sad part, yeah.
materialism. Mere Paas Tum Ho started with the fact that she was kind of like she wanted that a life that she desired that was not given by her husband materially, right? Although emotionally he was completely devoted to her. And yes, a vulnerability of a man. I mean, why can't we show men as emotional beings with who can truly express their emotions like women and say कि you know मेरे पास तो तुम हो, मुझे और किसी चीज की जरूरत नहीं है, right? So I think that depicted both sides nicely. But I would say that obviously extreme cues, man. A lot of people said, "Oh, she's being so mean," but this is happening. It is happening in our culture. And
Yes, I agree with you that these days, one positive thing about the Pakistani drama right now is they are depicting the current affairs. When we were growing up with like Fatma Bajia and those writers, these things were not prominent in our society, like infidelity, extramarital affairs. But now these things are happening, and the dramas are reflecting what's actually happening.
What is
So
actually
it
happening?
would be an eye-opener if you...
It existed in our society.
It is existing right now.
Always existed. It
Was
was
not
just that it was
Everything existed.
taboo.
No, but right now,
But now they bring
at a
all
very
these
higher
social
rate.
issues up through
Social
drama.
issues.
I think Karachi, what Sarko wants to say.
You see, if you look at Pakistani dramas ना,
Yeah.
पाकिस्तानी ड्रामा जब स्टार्ट हुआ तो जो पहला स्ट्रॉन्ग कैरेक्टर आया वो शेजोरी था, हसीना मोइन का, ठीक है ना? और ये सब हमारे अर्बन एरिया को रिफ्लेक्ट करता था, महाजिर जो कम्युनिटी हमारी आई थी, ठीक है ना? जितने शेजोरी या हसीना मोइन के जितने ड्रामे हैं वो हमारे महाजिर कल्चर को डिपिक्ट करते हैं. अगर आप महाजिर कल्चर को, द फर्स्ट पाकिस्तानी ड्रामा सफरिंग वुमेन का है ना, जो ये कहते हैं Pakistan is basically divided extremely into two parts. One is a very dominant feminine population who have got all the क्या कहते हैं independence, liberties and independence तमाम चीजें करी, and the rural part where women are extremely suppressed. और जो पहला पाकिस्तानी ड्रामा इस पे आया था वो था जंगल. अगर आप कभी देखना, जंगल था, सकीना सम्मू की उसमें अदाकारी थी और वो लिखा हुआ था, मुझे याद, नूरुल हुदा शाह का, नूरुल हुदा शाह का बेहतरीन ड्रामा था सकीना सम्मू का जंगल.
I'm looking at future subjects.
Oh, that one was I was going to mention
नूरुल हुदा शाह ने, अच्छा उस वक्त रूरल सिंध के अंदर काफी ये जो है ना डेकोइड कल्चर और इस चीज का बड़ा होता. नूरुल हुदा शाह का, एंड शी इज एन extremely good writer, totally different from what you see in हसीना मोइन या फातिमा सुरैया बजिया. हसीना मोइन का तो आप कहेंगे ना, हसीना मोइन का बड़ा मशहूर इंटरव्यू, उसने कहा what I feel कि हर लड़की अलग है. That's what she always used to say, हर लड़की अलग है, which I agree. ठीक है ना? और आपने जो कहा ना मेरे पास तुम, that's what I always used to say. तो अगर आपने पाकिस्तानी सफरिंग वुमेन का देखना है ना, तो देयर आर टू एक्सट्रीम. वन इज द टिपिकल अर्बन कल्चर, महाजिर कल्चर. It was even restricted to Karachi only. Karachi, Hyderabad maximum. It was not even Lahore या इस्लामाबाद या फैसलाबाद या मुल्तान भी नहीं था, because they are still on the other side of the. तो मचेजोरी, करण कहानी, ये तमाम चीजें थी. एक ड्रामा जो इसमें बहुत डिफरेंट आया था वो था शमा था, जिसमें पाकिस्तान की गोरी लेडी थी. और जो सबसे बड़ा चेंज आया पाकिस्तानी ड्रामा, which made Pakistani drama really, I tell you, is जंगल. वारिस
was a few
किस साल का था? जंगल किस साल का था?
हाँ जंगल होगा जाउला के एरा का ड्रामा है 80s का, मिड 80s टू अर्ली 80s का। सकीना सोमू की अदाकारी, उसके मेन किरदार को मैं भूल गया, लेकिन नूरुल्लाह शाह। एंड इफ यू रीड नूरुल्लाह शाह, इफ यू आर इंटरेस्टेड इन पाकिस्तान लिटरेचर, read Nurullah Shah. She is an excellent and she really depicts the culture of Pakistan, the way we are extremely divided between rural and urban.
And I emphasize this in this thesis as well, that their people in Pakistan are so diverse.
Yes.
So diverse. And in this thesis, I am looking at a very small group of type of people in Pakistan.
That's true.
And that is it.
I think what people sometimes forget is that in our culture, जो आप कह रहे हैं कि how to change it, in our culture it is usually the women who victimizes the men.
I include that in this.
Yes.
Who?
It is the woman who victimizes the women, the other woman.
Oh.
It is always a cycle of maa, bahu, biwi, behan, and the men are always in the middle,
trying to balance out.
Trying to keep a balance.
वो कहते हैं, I think आप जो कह रही हैं ना कि what is the solution, and I say the solution is, and it's not a perfect life, and it's not going to happen overnight, is to eliminate these labels from these relationships. कि ये बहन है और ये माँ है और ये नंद है और ये सास है. So I treat, and I mean I can only probably tell that I'm a proponent of कि I treat you as a human being, as somebody that I am. I'm a woman and I understand what you are going through as a woman. And like Amar Reddy, my babu, and I know what I have gone through as a girl.
It's right here. I've written the same thing.
It's a relationship and a woman. It's a relationship. It should be a relationship between a woman and a woman.
Pakistani dramas are very, very powerful because we produce dramas.
Exactly.
You see, there is a huge difference between Pakistani and Indian dramas. We produce dramas, Indians produce soap operas.
Yes.
Indians produce like it's.
Yeah, the Besan, the Bounty, and the Tika, they are all soap operas. They are just.
But Indian drama, I don't expect no. पूरे मांग पट्टी करके आप
वो तो मैं सुबह अक्सर अकेला होके तो
No, not just that. They died in and their actual long lost cousin, and उसकी शादी हो गई है.
And to some degree, I blame Indian dramas for the loud, unruly comedy and crude comedy in our culture that has.
Yeah, rubbish.
Yes.
Yeah, completely rubbish.
कहा ना कि women are victiming women.
Yes.
I've written this exactly.
I'm sure.
Some of the dramas are very strong, like Marisa.
Before,
Marisa.
when I was to me.
I think this was
What is script it was?
One of the participants said that she noticed a trend of women serving as vehicles for toxic masculinity, like you were saying. She referred to it as women abusing women. She observed the pattern in almost all dramas. She said the women abuses women. I would say that in all three dramas, Hum Safar Zindagi Guzar Hai Mere Paas Tum Ho, even if the woman is right, sometimes the woman will torture her and get things out of her. I would say basically women is the enemy of women. This is word for word from someone who said this. That's
Superb drama.
I know.
And it really बहुत अच्छा drama है. And it really depicts the tale of silent suffering.
But there is another quote that I must give you. Is in dramas like Angan and recently going on drama Baby Baji. Baby Baji. So both Angan and Baby Baji are showing joint family stories, which I think is what people are realizing after COVID. Also, a trend that is becoming very popular, that living life together, जैसे पहले ज़माने में रहते थे कि हमारे बच्चे पल जाते थे, किसने पाली थी, चच्ची कोने में रहती थी, मामी साथ में रहती थी, हम उनके पास छोड़ने चले गए.
You really, wow, we're invested. Not because it is the coloring of the three, it is the coloring of the three. What the?
Oh, lovebirds.
Oh, we can't
Huh? Oh, okay.
It is very good.
Oh, very good. Chalo, I'm glad. Aja. Chujo है HMNC.
Very nice.
मुद्दा
हाँ हाँ
बहुत अच्छी
किस बात का
एक्सीलेंट
अच्छा very
बहुत
good.
अच्छी very nice आलू बड़ा एक मिनट आलू उनसे बहुत मजा